Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here checking out Delta Strike First Assault. Again. Because this game is probably very familiar to those of you who looked at PlayStation Mobile every now and again back when it was still up, because this is a port directly from that. And not only do they have not changed much, it seems to be a lot worse than I remember. So, let's just go have a quick look around at the very little things they've got here. They've got silly little credits, obviously, which oddly enough says 2014, but if we come out here it says 2016, so this game's at least 2 years old. And you can come here to completely mute the sound and music, which to be fair is probably the better way to play the game. But at this point, I'm just gonna have to keep it nice and on for you. Let's just turn that back on. I can't tap properly. So we'll hit continue. We should get popped straight into the hangar. Yes, here we go. And this is where we can pick our plane. There's a bunch of different planes, some of which are DLC that aren't actually out yet. So if I select, say, the Destroyer plane to unlock it, and we go into the PlayStation Store, if it doesn't fail to connect, it should tell me that the content is either not for sale, or it'll bring up an empty listing, which is a very weird thing to do when you have add-ons. Usually, in this sort of game, the most purchases are going to come from like the first week or so. So, yeah, there's nothing there. Notably, there are a fair few cool models, but I mean, here's the drill. So, I had started with the Spitfire, which has iffy top speed, middle-of-the-road acceleration, above-average handling. I upgraded to the B-32 Seraph, which has better stats almost across the board, and I noticed absolutely no difference between the two planes. So there doesn't seem to be any difference in changing these at all. You can upgrade them, as you can see by the yellow lines, but it really, really doesn't make a difference. It's just a tiny little bit of extra oomph going on there. If we hit next, we can see that we can also buy extra missiles and a faster Gatling gun. The funny thing about the Gatling gun, at least at this point, I've only been playing for half an hour, so it doesn't really matter that much, but oddly enough, the Gatling gun instant kills anything if you fire at it and you're accurate enough, except for the planes that fly over. If you want to kill the planes, you need missiles, which is absolutely frustrating. Even worse, there's even more microtransactions. There's a fucking ton of them! There's so many of them! I don't understand why they're here. Well, then again, of course I understand why they're here. The game's a goddamn mobile port. What would I expect, right? Excuse me. So, yeah, we come to a PlayStation Store listing, and it's just empty. So, 0 point to that. You can navigate these menus using the D-pad, but unfortunately, you can't actually use the D-pad to control the plane in the game, which is unfortunate because of my analog stick, but thankfully my analog stick doesn't seem to be much better. Doesn't seem to be very bad against this, I should say. So, you've got a bunch of different skill points. You've got things you can spend skill points on, which you get by leveling up. And there's not really that much to it, honestly. You get a stealth thing, which lets you pass through objects and enemies, which is a weird upgrade to have. And Eagle Eye, but these don't come until after you've hit at least level 10 or 11 or something like that, because you only get 1 point per level, and you need to get 5 points in basics to get down to technical. You need to get 5 points in that to get down to expert. You get the idea. So, that's a bit pointless. Now, here comes a briefing. They're very poorly written, and some of them are in really bad English. There's a lot of typos and stuff all over the place. It's pretty frustrating. See, there's the typo right there. It's a small I, not a capital I. And there's a space between the I and the M. But yeah, that's basically the briefing. The briefings are irrelevant. They tell a pointless story, which is really basic and generic and all that. And it's actually kind of irrelevant, because I ended up playing a mission where, in the briefing, it said my target was traveling along in two tanks and a truck, and the target I had to bomb at the end of it was a military base. So it's like, what's the point? But anyway. So this is the game. You use the analog stick to fly around. You're trying to avoid stuff, like see that bullet trail there, you got to avoid that, because if you take hits to both your wings and then take a hit to the front, you will die. That is your health meter, that's your health system. But if you run head on into an object in the world or into a enemy, you will die instantly. No health, no nothing like that, you'll just die. This has happened to me more than once, mainly because of the gigantic ass fucking plane that I have to look at sitting directly in the middle of my screen. It's extremely frustrating because you can't see what's directly in front of you, especially if you've got a gigantic plane. So I've got to try and get out of the way of the helicopter while I can't freaking see it. And if you couldn't tell just by looking at it, the airplane handles like a right ass, and the default plane doesn't handle any better despite the fact that it's got better handling. It has like 2/3 handling, and it still handles like shit. So, God, this isn't particularly good at all, honestly. At the end of the mission, that circle comes in, you have to press it when the button goes opaque. It's a pain in the ass. I don't understand why they make you do it, because you fail the entire stage if you don't pull that off successfully. So, I honestly don't know what the point of that is. I really don't. And I might as well upgrade my Gatling gun. I mean, why not, right? The problem with the Gatling gun, though, is that it's completely... It's like an instant kill thing, so it's like you only need to tap it every now and again. So, there's absolutely no reason not to hold the square button down, gameplay-wise. The sound is terrible. Most of the sound of this game is terrible. It just sounds horrendous. It's generic, it hurts the ears, and the music is just a loop. There's only a couple of loops the game has in the different kinds of stages. Not much variety going on in any of the stages either. I mean, it's basically the same thing when it gets right down to it. Like, you're stuck in a small trench or canyon or street or whatever. Reminds me a lot of the Star Wars trench run more than anything else. And you fly on down it, you gotta try and avoid things going on in the background. Like, you can run to one of those lampposts and die, by the way. I have done that. You just wander on down this trench. You shoot everything that has a white thing around it, because you can literally shoot it through a building. If you get to it fast enough, again, here comes a plane. Can't shoot that with a regular cannon, so I have to let a missile out on it. And this is literally what you do over and over again. This is what I've been doing over and over again for the past half an hour. It's very repetitive, very quickly, and it really isn't very enjoyable, honestly. Especially when the craft handles like ass, and the majority of the game is easy anyway. The only reason I've crashed more than once is because my jet's ass is so big that I can't see past it. Oh, look at that. You can actually shoot those things down with the guns. Who would have thought? Those laser trucks are actually really distracting as well, because the glowing beam that they let out actually resembles a money pickup, because those do show up in the middle of the stage, so it is really annoying to deal with them. So yeah, the majority of the game is basically pointless. It's just flying down the same set of trenches over and over again while it's somewhat procedurally generated in front of you. Not really, but somewhat. Then just spending whatever skill points and money you get on a better plane and an upgrade, skipping through this, which there's a loading time here, by the way, in case you didn't notice, which is a real pain in the ass, because there's no loading bar or anything like that, so it's like, what's the fucking point, right? And it's just... the levels just get longer and longer. Like, you see how up in the top left there's a counter that says TGT, or I imagine that means target? That just gets longer and longer after every level, so it's literally just an endurance course. How long can you last being bored by an arguably extremely dull level system? It's a shame, because for all the other technical failings the game has, including some performance problems, especially when it's loading in a new chunk of canyon or street, it's actually a fairly decent looking game, more or less. The models are pretty good and the textures are alright, so it's like, they could have made like a sort of Ace Combat style game with like free flying around a big area with different objectives or something, and actually balanced it instead of just making the chain gun able to instant kill everything from level 1 and not having to put tons of microtransaction things in there that you end up not being able to buy anyway because they're not up on the store. That was so close to doing something at the very least interesting. And they fucked it up royal. It's just totally unpleasant to play. It's got a lot of problems. And even worse, it's $6.99. That's a ridiculous price for this, because I'm pretty sure it was cheaper back on PlayStation Mobile. Because I like to think I wouldn't have paid that much for it. I'm probably wrong, but Still, for a native Vita game, that's a ridiculous price. Like, completely and utterly bonkers. Just completely bonkers. I don't know who came up with this, but they need to get a hold of themselves. The trophy list is literally get to level 5, get to level 10, get to level 15, get to level 20, get to level 30, get to level 40, get to level 50, get to level 60, get to level 99. I might be wrong on that, I might be remembering that wrong, but that's the basic gist of it. So this entire game just turns into a death march. Imagine having to fly levels much longer than this. Imagine only having a couple of extra abilities like phase through everything or slow down time for just a tiny little amount of time while they slowly just fill the screen with more crap that you can't see because most of the aircraft are so big that you can't see what's directly in front of you most of the time. And you have what's probably Delta Strike First Assault's endgame. See? I ran into the lamppost. But apparently that damage didn't stick around for very long, so who knows. It's a shame. With decent graphics like this is a Unity game. Unity games are known for not running very well on the Vita, so this running as well as it does is actually pretty decent. I just can't help but wonder what they could have done if they had actually tried. I really do need to get around to submitting a bloody game design document and a sign-up form for Sony's developer program because I am 99% sure I can make a better game than this in 2D with Game Maker because I am actually working on a prototype right now and it is actually showing some promise. Generally, the reason why I give up on most of my prototypes is that I can't think of a decent way to make them work, but I've made something that's interesting and maybe I'll do a video on it, but yeah, right now we're talking about this piece of shit, and this piece of shit is a piece of shit and you really shouldn't buy it. Just don't. There's no point. You can get much better for much less. It's a shame that the first Ace Combat game, Ace Combat X Skies of Liberation for the PSP, isn't on the Vita, because that would be a much, much better option than playing this, but yeah, that's unfortunate. So this has been Blue Maxima, checking out this pain in the ass game. I'll see you all next time.